All right, so let's talk about this dev stream that we just had from the live from the Tokyo Game Show. I do not have a Japanese translator, so forgive me on that one. Just looking at my notes here. So yeah, new Warframe. I'm not gonna speculate too much. I'll put out a video in like a week when I've had 3 or 4 days to, or at least a couple of days to play with them. Komai, I'm just gonna throw out my initial thoughts. Visuals, theme, cool. Marionettes, an interesting play on the threads of fate type thing. I don't know the Japanese mythology at all, so couldn't tell you anything there. The one thing I noticed in the dev stream was there was a lot of she applies a single status effect, but if you roll triple sixes, good old 18 stat in D&D, then you'll get every status effect, or you'll be invulnerable instead of slightly damage resistant. Uh, that seems like a problem because if you've played D&D, rolling the 3d6 for your stats, throw your hand up for how often you actually get your 18 in your stat and how often you get like 12, 8, 10, 9. And hate to tell you, if your ability is like going to more consistently apply a single status than applying all the statuses, you're a really bad version of Lavos or Varuna. Others probably as well that are escaping the top of my head at this moment. That's the biggest thing I see there, is unless there's some trick to it, it's just not good. You can walk up with Varuna, press 2 once or twice, and apply every status in the game about 10 times over in an, in an AoE even. A little bit of a weird concept there. Again, we'll see when it comes out for real and we've got more information. I'm looking at the dev workshops and I can't find one for Kume to even try and begin to sort that out. Covering some other stuff, we got the 1999 demo on October 16th. I'll look at that on stream probably when it's available, rather than getting into a whole pile of speculation. I didn't even watch the final 1999 part of the stream because I don't get super hyped in advance for these things. I know I'm a terrible content creator for that. We moved on. We got some fashion. We got some reworks. Wukong got a nerf that probably doesn't affect 90% of the people out there, and that might be a generous number having to do with animation cancels in the club. You know the joke about the meme builds where you have to turn into the operator, do a backflip, flip it. It's not quite that level of stuff, but it's similar. The only thing I would say about that Wukong nerf is you want to talk about Wukong flying around doing heavy attacks being disruptive. I'm a Sevagoth main. I can blow up half the map before we even see it. I'm actually honestly surprised that I didn't see a nerf to sow or dark propagation or whatever. The most obvious one being not letting you blow up the same enemy twice, which is a full kill with one cast. Same thing with Titanias and Thermal Sunders and Gausses and Thermal Sunders. Like, there's 1.5 million ways to do that are probably more efficient than Wukong trying to do this fancy animation canceling heavy slam. Hildren got some upgrades. The Balefire Charger got buffed. It didn't really need it, but sure. It's not like it was overperforming. People obviously thought it was underperforming, so I'm not going to critique them too much on that. Her Aegis Storm, she gets to fly around at the same speed as Jade based on what they said now, and the Balefire Charger will automatically equip instead of having to be cast separately. Also, she's allowed to use her Pillage in the air, much like Jade can if you helmet it on. So yes, the real toss-up is, what's the difference between Hildren and Jade at that point? Let me know in the comments. Jade gives you a power strength buff, and Hildren has a AoE cannon. And well, you can helmet the pillage onto Jade. Otherwise, I was going to say Jade has a much slower, clunkier armor stripping. So, not much there. There's big Nova rework. Can't see, all I can see is positives in the Nova rework. Nothing really bad to say about that. She's getting the ability to generate health and energy orbs. She can do the speed thing without having to be a weird nerf her power strength and break her other abilities type situation. I still think the antimatter drop's too slow to be practically useful. It's kind of in that same venue with the ballistic battery on Mesa, and you can make a nice little gimmick novelty video build about it, but practically in gameplay, you're not going to do it. The only thing with the portals I was kind of considering was whether enemy projectiles are going to use the charges, because if you see me play Nova occasionally, you'll notice I set the portals as like a shield or a wall where the enemy shoots into them and they reflect them back at the enemy, basically. It's a very weird use, but I was kind of curious about that. We'll see when it happens, of course. Big elephant in the room. If you looked at the title of this video, you know what's coming is Caliban's rework. Yeah, I reserve final judgment till it actually comes out. Of course, we are going to play with it. But I'm actually going to whip us over to the simulacrum away from whatever gameplay I've got us watching currently so I can explain where the thoughts and why the comparisons on that are occurring. So we will see you in a second here. All right, so if you read the title of this video, this is the main event. Caliban rework. And yeah, if you read the title. So I brought our current Caliban in here because Caliban's literally the least played Warframe. I assume we might need some demonstrations. We are gonna pop in some enemies here in a second. I'm gonna put my companion away so it doesn't skew up everything. Alright. Just some level 150s, not steel path or anything. Okay. So Caliban's one right now is this. As you can tell, this is underwhelming. Just spent my entire energy bar to kill half of a butcher. As someone on Discord so eloquently put it, it's an emote slot that you can spend an ability slot on for. So yeah, you can't really go wrong with what they did to that, and I'll actually read it off from the dev workshop. I will have the dev workshop link down in the description. So yeah, they have you dashing forwards. You don't do the indefinite spitting thing there. When you hit enemies, you'll get health and shields back, and energy. That's alright, I guess. When you fill up your health, you start filling up your shields. When you fill up your shields, start filling up your other shields. It's not the worst thing you can have as a one by a launch shot. It's fine. More importantly, it deals Tau damage and status instead of slash. And impact. Apparently it did impact. I didn't see any impact on those guys, but Tau damage and status isn't the first thing we need to discuss here, because they changed all of Caliban and all Caliban summons to deal Tau damage and status. Tau status is new, but what it does is it increases status vulnerability. Not actually a new stat. I think Pablo even corrected himself on the stream to mention that it wasn't totally new, because it's the same status that applies when Dante does page flight, which is in here somewhere. Yeah, it's that one. So yeah, status vulnerability that in Dante, in my Dante build there has 168%. Means if I hit them with a slash, for instance, with Dante, they're likely going to take 2 slashes. Dante's case, throwing slashes on the enemies and then exploding them with his super ultimate dark verse, final verse, whatever, tragedy, whatever it's called. I mix up his ability names. Is the whole kind of combo of his kit. The other one that has it is Citrine over here. This thing actually gives people increased status chance, which is basically the same thing. Just worded differently and applied as a buff instead of a debuff. Again, Citrine, her gem shoots out fire and toxin and electric and cold and corrosive if you have the right mod. Her one throws off slash status as well. Caliban, though, they changed all this stuff to Tau status. Tau status does not increase the chance of inflicting more Tau status. Not that you need it if you've got 4 abilities all inflicting it. A couple, and one of the mean summons that inflict it passively, but Caliban doesn't, he's not inflicting any other status, and yes, sure, I can roll up to them and go, and it will help that, but that's completely separate from Caliban's kit. And it's weirdly redundant to have it applied 4 or 5 times over. I'm just gonna kill these guys and bring in a fresh group that's not been tagged. So yeah, I'm not really getting how Tau status is anything but a novelty gimmick. It's a weird support option for your weapons and or other teammates that Caliban himself doesn't really benefit from in any direct conceivable way. Sentient Wrath. So Sentient Wrath didn't actually change much. They changed it to a lifting status like Hydroid's Tentacles, and hopefully left off the part where Hydroid's Tentacles make many auto-targeting abilities not work on them. But yeah, still does basically the same thing with Tau status added on. You slap them like this, and they'll suddenly take more damage. See, I can suddenly kill things with that. Crazy, I know. You can't really tell which ones were affected. They apparently made that a little more clear too, but it's going to affect all of them now. Oh, hang on. So we have fresh pair. Caliban summons. There's a whole whack of options for these. The problem is you're going to use the shield regenerating one because it's such a core part of his survivability. Otherwise, you're going to have to spam dashes through groups of enemies like a bloody madman. And as far as I can tell, the dash doesn't make you invincible, so you're going to take damage if you dash through a bunch of enemies. Which counteracts the point of healing yourself by dashing through a bunch of enemies. Notably, the new version of the shield charger one, the Simulist, whatever it was called, you get 1 instead of 3, and you don't see him now, but you have to stay in range for those little shield recharge towers. Staying in range of 1 of 3 is usually pretty easy. Staying in range when there's only 1 is a lot more difficult. And what do you get instead of the other 2 if you use that summon in the new rework? You get a bunch of guys who fly around and try and distract the enemies, which is both very good and kind of janky. Taunts are very good. They're one of the only crowd control measures that work on overguard units and even most mini-bosses. The side problem of taunts, if you watch my video on gathering stuff, when I was demonstrating it with Loki's decoy and Titania's lantern, is the enemies just ignore them sometimes. No real rhyme or reason. I assume there's something caused you to be a higher threat. I don't know. So the taunting, it's should be good, but it's not reliable due to iffy AI. As always, when we talk about AI and summons, it seems to come down to that. The big elephant in the room. So yes, is this one. Right now I shoot this. Look at them all, they have no armor. I'm going to kill them all. at my console, immediately spawn in another group. These guys also don't have armor. Cool, eh? It's probably dispelled by now, but see how there's this little aura thing going around them? That's a big circle that strips the armor and shields off anything that enters it and sticks around for a period based on your duration. That's the word I'm looking for. Based on how he worded it, and it could have just been poorly worded, the feedback for him is tearing the proverbial back entrance out of it currently. So we may see a clarification on this after this video goes up, in which case I will append a comment or even re-upload the video. We'll see. They took that field based on what they said. They put the armor strip only on these beams and took the field away, or the field does damage instead. Also may have lost the little gathering thing that's kind of happening in the middle there. That is a gigantic nerf, because if your people are in a nice little straight cone in front of you, it's very easy to hit them with the beams, but if you so much as get an elevation difference, you don't hit any of them. Also, yes, if you want to see how Caliban kills things right now, it's not graceful, but it works. These guys would also help with the simulacrum most of pausing AI. So yes, you could kill things with Caliban's one. It was just really janky, we'll say. Because you just do this and this and kind of gradually do this. General problem being that while you can do this while moving, it's not super graceful and tended to send them flying away from you. So yeah, what we've got is a Caliban instead who's just going to apply a bunch of Tau status to boost the application of statuses that his kit doesn't include, and has a non-persistent janky line of sight attempt to try and remove armor. Instead of the reliable one that lasts a while. That's a nerf. The only thing that actually got better was this 2, because it affects more than, I don't know, 3 targets or whatever this is doing. I can go check that. Yeah, max target's 57 in my case. Not something you're actually likely to run into. This is a very high strength build, though. This isn't the one from my original build video, even. So yeah, I don't think you need to worry too much about max targets, but hey, that's basically the one real buff that was in it. The new summons are neat ideas, but the problem is that's going to impede his survivability if he's not using the shield ones. And even more so, I don't think that the offensive ones are going to be able to profit when you can't reliably strip the enemy's defenses anymore. So yeah, that's... And like, cross your fingers, hope that it was misworded, or hope that it gets a rework of the rework. Which is unlikely, because it's the weekend, and it's coming out on Wednesday, I think. But yeah, the cooking went in a weird direction that I don't think really actually helped the frame out. It's all very nice and unique. It doesn't create a cohesive, useful kit out of it, and seems to have taken away his bigger strength. Like, everyone, even the people like Brozim, I'm just gonna say it because I mean it's in his tier list video, it's not public. Brozim, like, said this is Caliban's only good ability, which is not entirely true in my opinion, but the most diehard of Caliban needs a severe rework. Caliban is garbage people that I can think of off the top of my head knows that this is the good thing, the good power, the good thing that you do, and they took that out. And it don't make sense. Anyways, cutting back to the rest of the video. All right, so our other big chunk of the dev stream was companion reworks. So again, I'm got the dev workshop right up in front of my face here because not everything was super clear on the stream. Honestly, it was the audience noise, I think, was making it a little hard to hear them sometimes. Your Kavats, your Kubros, your Predicites, and your Vulpaphilas are generally the main things we're looking at here. They're all going to come with built-in weapons. They're simulated weapons, sort of, almost like Garuda's Talons, essentially. Just a spot to put mods, and mods like Bite and the Shock Collars and all that sort of stuff are going to move to those, along with having some new stuff available. That's generally speaking a good one. It frees up more mod slot on your main animal, and in theory gives you more options for modifying their damage. They do rank up, they do get capacity, you do polarize them, etc. They're going to have a stance mod, which is called the posture mod. That both gives them bonus capacity and will dictate somewhat how your companion's AI behavior occurs, similar to how when you toggle the switch from Venari with Korra, assuming you didn't helmet that off. There's a few different options. One thing that I have noticed is the Kubros particularly all seem to have a lot of them. Some of them have lower damage stats without getting a particularly huge buff to status or critical. I'm not sure about that. Obviously, if having a whole weapon to mod for damage does give them a higher potential yield for damage, because you couldn't stick too many damage mods without completely sabotaging your pet's utility before. That's one of those ones I'm really let's see it in practice. I'm not going to try and prejudge it too much. I just noticed that there's several of them with what appears to be lower stats damage wise. Okay. And the other thing they said, there's not going to be ribbons for these right away. We got some AI changes. The pets are going to try and stay in your field of vision and lead in front of you so you can see what they're doing. Not sure on that one because they said this about gas. They were like, gas is really powerful, but you can't see what's happening, so we're just going to make it more visible. And it's more visible, but it's not great by any means compared to pretty much all the other statuses. You have to armor strip and ideally apply viral if you want to have gas to really pop off. And the obvious initial problem there is the stuff that does the armor stripping and the stuff that applies viral can't be applied by the same thing applying gas in most cases. Side tangent complete. Pets will gain a speed boost when they're moving between targets to decrease the time they engage, so you should see less of your dog like running around in circles trying to find his way to an enemy. And a few other things like that. We have the Charm Nerf. Again, this is kind of like the Wukong situation. I know that what they described is a thing that happened specifically with Steel Essence and Riven Slivers in particular at one point. It's such a minimal fraction of the player base that's going to sit around for 6 minutes before picking up their organ cells just hoping their cat's gonna pop off a double boost. Especially considering there's no guarantee that because of RNG is RNG, there's no guarantee that your pet's not going to take 3 hours to pop off a double resource boost. It was always one of those weird things where I'm like, if people want to do that, just let them. They're wasting their time. But that got taken out of charm entirely, and the other odds got rebalanced. Instead, there's now mods that allow you to get additional bonus resource chances for bonus resources or bonus credit pickups, or both, but a lesser amount. That's all fine. Some utility stuff to do with farming. We got some precepts that were going to be changed. A lot of these are very minor changes that I don't even feel like going through in detail. Something I did notice with a couple, like in this video you're watching in the background, I actually have a Chesakubro, the one that can sort of Necros desecrate every 10 seconds on a single enemy. That precept didn't get changed at all. It's still a thing that is technically occurring. It's technically, if you don't have a Necros or you're too far from your Necros, it's a thing that conceptually will help occasionally, sometimes. In case you didn't get the idea, that bot, that's not great, but if you are dedicated farming, you might as well bring it. That one didn't even make the list. The other Kubro I sometimes use that digs up the energy orbs and things, usually at the start of the mission. That can get you heavy weapon ammo now, but the biggest problem is it doesn't dig if you're in any kind of combat, which is every mission, all the time, pretty much. You have to stop between fights and stand still for your Kubro to take up some energy orbs for you. Or similar ones. I don't think the one about opening lockers or anything, or a lot of the Kubros where it's like can do a finisher on a single enemy or pin down a single enemy, like any of those got any significant amount of changes. Despite the fact that on the Devstream itself, they I think mentioned the locker one specifically as being kind of a useless mod. A few of these got nerfed. Some of them did. Most of them got some kind of buff. There's a bunch of random stuff. By and large. The other one I use a lot is the Ghost from the Shade Sentinel. That's got you a little bit of. You've got 3 seconds where you're out of range of the enemies, where you won't lose the invis, and you can get back in range. Gives you a bit more ability to carry it between combat encounters, things like that. And yeah, I'm not seeing any other big highlights, really. Just having a look here. We got new and updated companion mods. The postures. So yeah, you have protect, you have standard, which doesn't change behavior at all. You've got Protector, which attacks enemies near you and applies stacks of puncture, which will decrease the damage they're dealing to you and make them more likely to take critical hits. That depends how frequently the pet attacks and how good it is at actually selecting targets that aren't already punctured. But hey, it's something. Pacifist training, your pet will not attack enemies unless they strike with melee weapons. That's the one where theoretically you're going to use that, where you want the thing to do the digging, for instance, because it should keep it out of combat. Again, I'm still not sure without them specifically stating that interaction that that's actually going to work that way, and it will need further testing. Persistent engagement, your pet will constantly attack one target until it's dead. There's one that makes them specifically attack Xmas and VIP enemies and increases damage to Overguard. That might be interesting if you can make like a magnet dog specifically to take down Overguard. Rather than wasting the magnet on your own weapons. We got damage conversion mods, which convert all your companion's physical damage into an elemental type. Or physical type, actually. I was just reading down there. These sound quite nice. They give you like 300% damage and status chance and convert all the damage to that damage type. The big one there is they need conservation tags. Conservation is RNG at best and a buggy mess at worst. I'm hoping that it's just, well, no, it can't just be standing, or they would have said that. So it must mean it's actually specific conservation tags. That could get quite rough. Then we got the ones where they gave you bonus resources or credits that I already talked about. We've got the elementalist for the pets, basically, mods. Condition overload one, essentially. Then yeah, all your crit chance, your damage, your elemental damage, stuff like that has been pushed over to being on the weapon instead of the animal. Spare parts is now usable on hounds. I don't even remember what spare parts does nowadays. The strain set now deploys the maggots immediately instead of having the wake up animation, and they do corrosive when they explode. And strain fever, which I think is the one I've never actually used in my life. Nothing about strain consume, I think, is the one I use on the melee weapons for the critical damage. Sentinel weapons, moving on from the pets. Basically all got buffed. I'm not going to get down into the specific details here. We'll look at those in build videos as they come up. Basically, they directly called out that the Verglass is the undisputed king, and they're trying to bring all the other weapons up to like a functional level where they could be considered actual weapons, and not just utility slots. So yeah, there's not too much to say about those. No, they've got some different effects. Not too much to go there. As I said, there's some more 1999 stuff that I did not super get into. I do not pay attention to overhyping stuff like 2-3 months before it comes out. And you don't want to know my opinion on talking about stuff years before it comes out. There's some skins. Skins, of course, subjective. Some people are going to like, yeah, they were very Japan themed, we'll say, inspired by Japanese culture, as they said, which is a little, I mean, they're skins, so, but it's a little odd, but also sort of sure, whatever. It's going to be odd if the Ostrones are suddenly like quoting Japanese mythology, of course. The new mission for Komai is in Cetus. It's some kind of invasion thing with a few arcanes and some galvanized melee mods. I can't imagine what those would be, because melee already has galvanized mods essentially in Blood Rush and Weeping Wounds after a fashion. I guess they're not based on kill, which most of the galvanized ones are. So maybe it's just going to be that kind of stuff. So melee arcanes and Kumai and their parts. Only real concern I have there is, cool, it's going to be a single tile defense mission with what drop chances, and is there a pity system? I think on streams more so than anything, I've made it kind of like I'm kind of over the whole do this one tile that never changes mission over and over and over again. Like Tiana Pass for Citrine or the elevator for Jade. I'm like, they know from the Nidus mission that's like 6 years ago now that this gets old very, very quickly. And I kind of wish we could just get stuff in some more variety, like make more than one tile for it or have it pop up in more than one mission. Stuff like that. Calero's kind of another example. There's not enough real variance in the Deviri runs over the amount of time that you need to get Clairvo and stuff like that. So yeah, that's this Devstream wrapped up. again, most of it's positive hype. Some of it's kind of I want to wait and see. The Caliban one, again, people have already said it, so you just go in and hit the like button on it. Essentially, there's like at least three to six posts on each page of the dev workshop about Caliban actually being nerfed massively by losing that defense stripping field. So I'll put the link to the dev workshops down there, and you can go drop a like or throw in your own thoughts on that one, because that's a huge one, and that's an unfortunate pattern, I'd say, because the warframes that they've reworked because they were the least popular or whatever, Grendel could eat infinite enemies, easy solo stuff. Then they gave him a lot of nice other buffs on his abilities, which is why there wasn't a huge stink about it or anything. Relatively speaking. But yeah, they took away his unique, super cool, best power thing. They kind of smoothed it out with the rest of his kit in his case. Hydroid under 2 made you invulnerable with link damage between enemies. It had a gather built in. That got scrapped completely, and they nerfed the range on his one massively because it scales the explosions instead of the range of the whole ability. If you didn't know old Hydroid, you could actually shoot the barrage across like entire rooms. And then Hydroid, I know a lot of people who didn't play Hydroid thought it was a big upgrade. But yeah, he lost so much utility and so much AoE coverage. And that loss of range wanted him to then really have a gathering ability that they took away and didn't replace. So, again, the frame lost his most unique / powerful ability and got some 50-50 at best stuff on the sides. Aneros kind of comes back like Grendel. His super unique thing he could do was heal defense targets for thousands per second, basically, and teammates for that matter. He completely lost that. He can only heal himself now. He got a lot of other nice stuff. He still has his weird bug where he can't inflict status with his sandstorm on overguard units. When fix that? When you gonna fix that, D? But so yeah, there's that weird trend where they're reworking this stuff, and even when they come up with these ideas and tie them together, they're taking away the thing the frame was good at. And kind of hit and miss. Like, it's actually probably batting a 50-50 ratio at best on whether the stuff they're giving them is actually substituting for the one they're taking away. I'm not enough of a Grendel person to really completely follow how effective you could be before. I never pretended I'm a main of everything. But yeah, if you've liked the video, let me know. We'll run some few more of these coverages, of course, at a time. We'll obviously be playing the update when it comes out. I believe it drops on the Wednesday, so I might forgo my Warframe weekly stream on the Tuesday to just pick up the update on Wednesday. Or we'll do both. We'll just have a very Warframe week. Anyways, leave a like, drop a comment, subscribe. That'll all help you see the content and any future stuff we got going. The Nezha build video is actually coming. I know I got my whole I hate my art situation with the thumbnail, and I'm just probably going to do it in Captura unless I find some time elsewise and really figure out what I did wrong to start with. And we'll have other Warframe stuff on the channel when there's actually content. Lotus Eaters didn't give us a whole lot, which is why there hasn't been much lately. And I've been buried in Wayfinder, of course. So check out the channel. I will throw those links to the dev workshops down in the description if you want to read more for yourself or go throw your own votes in on the Caliban situation. And thanks for watching.